The crackling hum of the radio telescope array filled the control room like a nest of hornets buzzing beneath the frigid desert night. James stared at the readouts, a weariness etching lines across his face. Another shift, another endless sweep of the cosmos, another void of silence staring back. His fingers danced across the keyboard. Years ago, he'd chased this job with the fervor of a devout astronomer. After all, wasn't this why they'd aimed those giant metal ears at the sky? To find a voice, any voice, among the stars? To prove humanity wasn't adrift and alone in the universe? Lately, though, the search had begun to feel more like tending a graveyard. The cold depths of space yawned back, impossibly silent. A discordant blip, a spike on the frequency monitor, jolted him from his thoughts. It pulsed a rhythmic beacon amidst the cosmic static. His stomach clenched. This wasn't a glitch. "Coordinates, now!" he barked at his assistant, who was already scrambling into action. The massive dish whirred to life outside, repositioning itself, the whine of its motors piercing the night. James felt his heart hammer against his ribs as the numbers materialized on the display. The signal emanated from deep space, 217 light-years out, an interstellar cry for help that had crossed centuries to reach them. But what truly chilled him was the automated timestamp attached to the beacon. 84 years old. The impossible stared back at James. 84 years. A message that old could only mean one thing. The civilization that sent it was long gone. Reduced to dust, their world was swallowed by the indifferent vastness of space. Yet, the signal persisted, a spectral echo haunting the cosmic void. A knot of unease tightened in James's gut. Why send a distress call if they knew no one would ever hear it? Was it a last, desperate plea, or a warning sent across the abyss of time? He had to know. James turned to his team, a newfound urgency flickering in his eyes. "We're going interstellar," he said. A collective gasp rippled through the control room. Interstellar travel was the stuff of science fiction, a theoretical marvel light-years away from practical application. But the message, that faint echo from a lost world, had ignited a spark within James. He wouldn't let it fade. "We'll need to assemble a team," James declared, his voice firm. "The best engineers, physicists, anyone who can help us develop a ship capable of making the journey." The following days were a whirlwind of activity. News of the signal spread like wildfire, igniting a dormant sense of wonder and purpose within humanity. Scientists emerged from their labs, their eyes gleaming with a renewed passion. Funding poured in from governments and private donors alike. The impossible dream of interstellar travel was no longer a dream, but a desperate mission. Years bled into one another as the project, christened Elysium, consumed James's life. He became a tireless leader, pushing his team to the limit, haunted by the image of a civilization extinguished and the unanswered question lingering in the signal's faint hum. Why? Finally, the day arrived. The Elysium, a marvel of cobbled-together technologies and sheer human will, gleamed under the harsh sun. It wasn't perfect, but it was humanity's best shot. As James strapped himself into the command chair, a tremor of fear ran through him. Still, it was overshadowed by a fierce determination. "This is for them," he murmured, his voice tight with emotion as he initiated the launch sequence. "And for us." The Elysium shuddered, then tore free of Earth's atmosphere in a plume of fire and smoke. The G-forces pinned James to his seat, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from the receding blue marble of his home planet. He was on a one-way journey, a lone sentinel carrying the hopes of a species into the unknown depths of space, chasing the faint whispers of a lost civilization. Months stretched into years aboard the Elysium. The confines of the ship became James' world. His crew fell into a rhythm, a dance of research, maintenance, and the occasional flicker of hope as they plotted their trajectory against the beacon's unyielding signal. Yet, the spectre of the unknown loomed large. What waited for them? A planet of desolate ruins? Some unforeseen cosmic horror that had swept their world from existence? Or something else entirely? Loneliness crept into the ship's corners, a constant companion mirroring the emptiness of deep space beyond. James battled the isolation, his dreams a jumbled mix of his life on Earth and the haunting image of a barren alien world. There were nights when he woke in a cold sweat, the distress signal's rhythmic pulsy pounding in his head. The breakthrough came during Year 4. A member of the biology team stumbled upon a hidden pattern in the signal, not just a call for help, but a data package. As they painstakingly decrypted it, the pieces began to fall into place. Blueprints for an unknown technology, star charts, and fragments of what seemed to be history. The civilization hadn't simply perished. They had tried to escape. Had they succeeded? Had they built a haven somewhere among the distant stars? James clung to the idea, the spark of hope reigniting within him. They weren't flying towards a tomb, but towards the chance of discovery. As they neared their destination, the anticipation aboard the Elysium became palpable. James had never been spiritual, but now he found himself praying to any deity that might be listening. The signal flickered, grew stronger, and then abruptly stopped. They'd arrived. The view screen is filled with a star system that is shockingly similar to Earth's, a blue-green marble nestled comfortably in the habitable zone, a potential cradle of life. But where were the city lights, the communication networks, or any sign of intelligent activity? James ordered deep scans, frantic scans searching for heat signatures, artificial emissions, anything. Hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. Finally, a gasp echoed through the control room. One of the technicians had isolated a faint energy source on the third planet. It wasn't strong, barely above background radiation, but undeniable. There was life. There was a chance. A single shuttle detached from Elysium, cutting a path toward the source of the weak energy signature. Inside, James's heart pounded a relentless rhythm against his ribs, a mix of fear, anticipation, and the intoxicating weight of responsibility. He wasn't just the emissary of a world, but the potential harbinger of hope for lost people. The shuttle entered the atmosphere, the turbulence shaking it like a child's toy. The world below was scarred, pockmarked with craters, and blanketed in a thin veil of ash. Whatever catastrophe had befallen this place, it had hit hard. The energy signal led them to a mountain valley. It emanated from a fissure in the rock, leading deep underground. James signaled his team, their faces tight with determination. Armed with cutting lasers and a healthy dose of trepidation, they ventured into the darkness. The passageway snaked downwards, the air growing stale and thin. After what felt like an eternity, they stumbled into a vast, dimly lit cavern. Ancient machinery whirred and hummed, fueled by a power source James couldn't identify. And in the center of it, all stood a series of crystalline pods. Inside, dozens of figures lay in stasis, their faces pale and still. Survivors, the last of their kind, asleep against the end of their world. James's breath caught in his throat. They had made it. But for how long? The machinery around them faltered, flickering as though succumbing to centuries of neglect. "We have to get them out. Back to Elysium," James declared, urgency fueling his words. His team didn't need to be told twice. They sprang into action, carefully extracting the slumbering forms from their pods. The return to Elysium was a race against time. The ancient life support systems began to fail, one by one. Doctors and engineers worked feverishly, using their own technology and salvaged relics from the cavern to jury-rig a network that would keep the survivors alive. The first flicker of eyelids and gasped breath was a small victory, but it tasted like the sweetest triumph James had ever known. He had not travelled across the stars for death, but to pluck a fragile flicker of life from the brink of oblivion. Weeks later, James couldn't suppress a small, tired smile as the first survivor stirred, regaining consciousness on board a starship far from the fading echoes of their broken world. He didn't know their language, didn't know their history. Still, the look in their eyes transcended words, a mix of bewilderment, fear, and an incandescent flicker of hope. The last transmissions of a lost civilization had brought him here. Still, it was up to him, up to humanity, to write the next chapter.